How to keep going on your Camino? Great question posed last week by, let me see if I can get the username right, Paysaper, who says that they're 62 years old, and how do you keep going, Rob, on the Camino? That's what we're going to talk about this week, coming right up. So if you're planning your first Camino, it can be quite a daunting thing, can't it? Depending wherever you're starting and which Camino you're walking, faced with the possibility of walking hundreds of kilometers, how will you keep going day after day? Perhaps you're not a hiker normally, perhaps maybe you're not that active. Time to get out and start doing some walking, get a bit of practice, get some exercise. But how do you keep going day after day? Because that's the thing that wears you down. It's okay to be practicing at home, and of course you should prior to going on the Camino. Build up slowly with checking your footwear and doing 5-kilometer walks and then 10-kilometer walks, and then gradually adding a little bit of weight, carrying a backpack and so on. That all is common sense. But walking at home is very different to walking on the Camino, because when you're on the Camino, depending on your age and fitness and so on, you're going to have a comfortable distance that you're going to walk. My comfortable distance happens to be around 22 kilometers on average, so I might be walking 20, 25. Once I start walking about 30 kilometers, my ankles and knees really start hurting quite a lot. So I'm walking that distance every day, day after day after day. It's not whether you're walking 20, 30 kilometers that's the issue. It's the fact that you're doing it day after day after day. And I think that was really what the question was about. How do you keep that up day after day? So let me share a few things that will hopefully put your mind at rest. Firstly, adrenaline. When you're walking at home, I don't actually walk at home much. I find it boring. I live on the edge of a city in Sydney, Australia. It's not a particularly nice area to walk around, although I do have some parks nearby. But you kind of get a bit bored walking around the same old park. Also, when you actually get out on the Camino, you've got that sort of excitement, and it's fresh and it's new, and you're there with a sense of purpose, and you're heading towards Santiago, and your energy levels are just so much higher. And so that's why I say the sort of adrenaline keeps you going a little bit, certainly in those early days, which of course is something to be careful about. And I've said this a few times, do not start off too quick. What's that saying? Start off like an old man to finish like a young man. And some people in their enthusiasm try to walk too far, too fast in those early days, and you can cause injury if you're not a regular hiker. If you've just walked the Appalachian Trail or something and now you're walking the Camino, no problem. But most pilgrims aren't like that. So the adrenaline's going to help you, and that sense of purpose and so on, that carries you through a little bit. Do some preparation prior to your Camino. So we're talking about the physical stuff here for a moment. And then my sort of physical routine during the day, it becomes a discipline. So, you've got to look after your body to keep it going. You're giving, let's say you're going to start in Saint-Jean on the Camino Francis. You're going to be walking 800 Ks. Maybe you're going to walk further, maybe you're going to walk less, whatever, but you're putting your body through quite a bit. So you do need to look after it. Because I kind of carry a few injuries anyway, I have a little bit of Achilles tendonitis, I have a bad back. Let me talk you through my physical routine to help me keep me going. So it starts before I even get out of bed. So I wake up and I start flexing my ankles while I'm in bed, getting the sort of tendons warmed up and things like that. And then I do an exercise where basically I sort of draw my knees up a little bit and I lift my bottom off the bed. What that does, it starts to exercise the back muscles a little bit, just to warm them up and get them moving. So I do that before I even get out of bed, just for a minute or so. Once I'm sort of ready to start walking, I'll start stretching the tendons, the leg muscles and so on, just normal sort of leg exercises, get everything warmed up, stretching my back, arching the back, getting all of that warmed up. You need to sort of switch the muscles on a bit. I'm not trying to make it sound like you're getting ready for an Olympic race or something, but you actually do have to warm the muscles up and switch them on and, get ready for the day. So, that's really important. Don't start off with sort of cold muscles. And I would do that during the day as well. So when I'm having a break, I'll stop for a coffee. I just do that little warm up on the legs, get the back going and all the rest of it before I set off again. And at the end of the day, I would do the same thing. Because I have Achilles tendon problems, I would also through the day try to ice the tendons and I would try to elevate my feet. So very often I'd lie at the side of the trail, boots and socks off, put my feet up on my pack and just relax for 10 minutes. It's good to just raise the feet. I'm not quite sure what it does medically, but it helps reduce inflammation and swelling and things like that. So let me just check my note here. On some of the physical aspects, hydration, really important. Dehydration can just cause more muscle problems, so do make sure you're well hydrated. Over 3 Caminos, I've worked out what my mileage is on water, and basically I use 1 litre of water for 10 kilometres. It's quite a bit of water, isn't it? I'm drinking 2 or 3 litres of water while I'm walking during the day. Do not let yourself get hydrated. It's just causes muscle problems, tiredness, all sorts of things. So don't skimp on the water. If you've got to dash behind a bush to pee a little bit more often, well, that's fine. Remember to pick up your tissues. But yeah, hydration's really important. Stretching we talked about. Eating well, try to get a good balanced diet. It's very hard to get vegetables on the Camino Frances for some reason. So whenever there's salads on the menu, you see everybody ordering those. But there's great food. Get some fruit and vegetables and so on and things like that. One of the other things that will help physically, and this is really hard to understand unless you walk to Camino, but I plan days off. Now, I'm kind of an over planner with Caminos, so my next one's going to be the Via de la Plata, and I've kind of planned where I'm going to walk every day, and I've researched all the villages where I'd like to stay, and I've planned in some rest days. Will I actually walk those days when I get there? No, it's purely a planning exercise to work out how many days should I allow to walk this Camino, how many days off should I allow for. The practicality is when you start walking, you might want to walk less, further, whatever it might be. But I've planned in those days off, and I generally plan one in about every 7 or 10 days because I know I'm going to need it. Do I know precisely where that day off's going to be? No. So when do I take the day off? When my body tells me. I suppose that's something that you learn when you've done the Camino a few times, is that you're not going to know how your body is coping on any sort of given day or any particular Camino. And so, for example, on my first one, I went, where did I have my first time off? It might have been Burgos, I think. So that's like 10, 12 days into the Camino. And I got into Burgos and I just thought, I need a day off. My body was just yelling at me, give me rest. And I managed to get a hotel room with a bath, which was amazing. So I had a couple of long hot baths to soak and relax and things like that. But I felt like I wanted to keep going. The mind was sort of saying, I want to keep going. But if you like, the heart was sort of going, no, you need a rest. Listen to that. And when your body is telling you, you need a rest, take it. I think that was probably the only full day off. No, I had a full day off in Leon as well. What I tend to do now is that I'll walk a short day if I feel that I need a rest, because I hate stopping on a Camino. I'm not really a sightseer, and I just want to keep moving. I love to be out in the countryside, not in the towns, but we're all different. So an alternative to having days off can be to walk a short day, and it might be 10 Ks, and you're going to do that in about 3 hours. So you can start off late in the morning, whatever. Do some sightseeing, at your destination and so on. So do plan in some rest, either full days off or short days, and take them when your body tells you to take them. Oh yes, so now let's start to get into some of the head games, because the question was more focused, I think, on the physical aspects of how do you keep going. What I find more of a challenge is the emotional aspects of keeping going, and it's the head games that go on, particularly when you're walking on your own, and I do like to walk on my own. And you're going to be extremely tired at times. You're going to be aching. Maybe you're unlucky and you've got blisters, and you're going to be sort of talking to yourself in your head, and why should I continue this? You start justifying things. I've enjoyed the last 2 weeks. I've probably got, I've been there, I've done all this. I probably got all I'm going to get out of this Camino. Well, I could go home, and I've got value out of it. So all of that's going on in your head. And one of the things that I found really helpful is do not focus on the destination. For me, and I learnt that so powerfully on my first Camino, it is about the journey, not the destination. And I've said this before, that on your first Camino, you may arrive in Santiago and feel a little bit let down, because it's not about the destination for most people. It's about the journey and enjoying the journey and getting value out of that journey and learning from that journey, finding yourself on the journey, whatever it might be. So I don't focus on the destination at all. I think on my first Camino, I started thinking about Santiago probably at Otibrero. So what's that, 140, 150 Ks from Santiago? And I started to feel sad because it was all, coming towards the end. It's like I could almost see the finish line. So don't focus on the end, because it seems like if you're walking a very long Camino, let's say you're walking from Saint-Jean, it can seem like an impossible task. How can I possibly walk across country? How can I walk 800 kilometers? And I'm talking for these people who, are not experienced hikers and long distance hikers. And what I found worked really well was to just focus on short-term goals. So, out of Saint-Jean, it was, what was my first goal? Get to Junto, which is sort of quite a steep section. When I get to Junto, I'm going to have a chocolate bar or something, And then when I've got to Junto, it'll be, next goal is Horizon. And when I get there, I'm going to have some lunch or something like that. So I'd have these little goals through the day. It was never, never in my mind was 800 Ks, not even 20 or 30 Ks necessarily to my next sort of night stop. It was little short goals along the way. And then you feel yourself achieving these little goals. It's like the sort of basic project management, isn't it? Set achievable goals. So that I find works really well. You will, particularly on a long Camino, probably have some motivation issues at times. As I mentioned, a couple of weeks into it, you might be thinking, is this really for me? What I would say is make sure you enjoy the journey. And I don't mean trying to do this in an artificial way, but all too quickly it's over. And, enjoy the people that you're meeting along the way. Enjoy the places, don't rush. If you see an interesting church, spend some time there, go and have a look at it. I would just sit on hilltops sometimes, and just go, wow, isn't this an amazing view? Or, oh, look, a field full of cows, I'm going to sit and watch the cows for a bit. Enjoy everything about the Camino, enjoy the food. I guess what I'm saying is just let go. And don't worry too much about, your timetable and all this kind of stuff. That's why I prefer not to plan too far ahead. With accommodation, for example, I'm probably booking one night ahead, because I don't want the hassle of having to meet deadlines and schedules and things like that. That's not really what the Camino's about. You've got to let go and kind of enjoy it. You will have bad days. Maybe you won't. Maybe it's just me. But generally, if I'm walking on my own on a Camino, I'm going to get a couple of bad days. Like, it's that day when you're tired and hurting and I don't want to do this anymore, and, how far have I got to go? you've just got to kind of push through that a little bit. And the thing that I have found really helpful, if I'm having days like that, I kind of sit myself down, give myself a talking to, and say, Rob, there's probably a lesson in this somewhere. You know, someone is trying to teach you something, perhaps. And I find generally that if, how would I put this? It's not if something's not going my way, or, you know, if things have turned out kind of not as good as I'd expected, I'll just put it that way. You know, maybe in terms of how I'm feeling that day, or, you know, whatever it might be, you know, the accommodation wasn't what I expected, or whatever. I kind of always look for the silver lining, and there always is one, always. So that's probably a key tip. If something, it sounds really weird voicing this, because I don't get disappointed or annoyed at stuff on Camino. I guess that's probably one of the lessons. But, you know, if you find something is making you feel a bit down, look for the lesson in it, and then you'll be, you know, bouncing back up again, because there's normally a lesson. Okay, and finally, the point I wanted to make is don't be silly about it. Don't push too hard. If you're finding physically, mentally, emotionally, that it's really becoming too much, that you really can't complete your Camino, you know, it's not a competition, it's not a test. You know, maybe go home, try another time. But before you do that, maybe just take a rest. Maybe take a day off in one of the amazing towns along the way. Go and do something different for a day. Go and do some sightseeing or something like that, and I'm sure you'll bounce back. But yeah, don't be silly about it. You know, it's not a life or death thing to finish your Camino. Okay, so there we go. I rambled a bit, but thank you very much for that question. How do you pronounce your username? Is it Pacesaper? Pacesaper1, I think it was. 62 years young for your first Camino. I was 57 on my first one. I'll be 66 on my next one. So thank you for the question, and I hope my rambling response has been of some use. But thank you everybody for watching. If you have any comments, suggestions, questions, do comment down below. And I'll see you next week. Bye for now.